Wes Huff go on like Stephen Bartlett's podcast.
Okay.
And, he's just like running up numbers, like, Stephen Bartlett's asking questions. Because if somebody knows just enough and the other person doesn't know anything, that person looks like they're the smartest person in the world.
That's exactly
Wes Huff, when he goes on Joe Rogan,
Yep.
when he goes on, and I always just kind of laugh and chuckle because there's people out there that people think are really smart, but they actually just only ever do stuff with not dumb people, but people who are dumb in that area.
Yeah, they don't know enough context to be able to push back, and so they can say a lot of words. It sounds articulate, it sounds intelligent, but yeah, I mean, so to that point, right? I looked at the video. So Wes Huff went on Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO.
And if you don't know who Wes Huff, tell him who Wes Huff is.
So Wes Huff is this generation's William Lane Craig. If you don't know who William Lane Craig is, he's like
he was a generation's Ravi Zacharias.
Oh,
and if you don't know who Ravi Zacharias is,
don't look him up. So basically, William Lane Craig or Wes Huff, they're what we call apologists, right?
Yeah.
So they have different maybe degrees or different fields in which they're maybe is maybe their specialty. Like William Lane Craig was a philosopher. I think Wes Huff is a New Testament scholar?
Yeah.
But his shtick is sort of going on different programs or podcasts. William Lane Craig used to do debates, and they basically try to persuade people who are non-believers to become Christians. And so they do what's called Christian apologetics. And so Wes Huff he's been on a media run for a while. He's written a couple books. He's gone on Joe Rogan, like you mentioned. And so he went on Diary of a CEO and he did his shtick, which is basically trying to convince Stephen Bartlett, who is I guess he said he's an agnostic, he's an atheist, to convince him and through him convince his audience to become Christians, and not just any Christian, because he's not necessarily representing the broad spectrum of Christian theology. He's trying to get them to become a specific type of Christian, which, I think is more evangelical.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. As far as apologists go in general, I think it's kind of like the jester of the sciences. I've heard somebody say before that theology is the queen of the sciences. If that's true, which it's not, then apologists they represent the jester of the sciences. So like the whole idea, I pulled up this quote from Hauerwas. Well, it's not a quote from Hauerwas, but basically he said, it is. He said, if you can be argued into faith, or if you need to defend God, then you're worshiping an idol. Like that, like in terms of the whole work of being an apologist. It's always crazy because they can say anything too. Yeah. When they're talking to an audience, like a broad audience, everything you say is going to sound authoritative. You know what I mean?
If you're persuasive, if you're articulate, if you have some level of study behind you, then yes.
Yeah. But he I don't know if you remember, he actually got into it with Dan McClellan.
Who did? Wes Huff?
Wes Huff did.
I don't think I saw that.
And then after like two video responses from Dan McClellan, Wes Huff posted a video. He was like, I don't have time for this.
Oh, that's how you know you lost.
Yeah, I need to be. Okay. I'm a dad. I got to spend time with my kids.
Oh no, you just ain't want to smoke with Daddy Dan.
Yeah,
clearly. Yeah. So I was looking at the comment section of the video with Stephen Bartlett, and it was only evangelical Christians saying, "Yes, this is historic. I can't believe it. I'm praying." Ruslan was in the comments. We're praying for you, Stephen. Amazing. We hope you see the light.
Bro, that's what they always do. They always want to claim some celebrity as like, we're gonna get them.
Do you have? It's almost like there's this, and I remember this because I was there. Right. It reminds me of the Christian rap to secular rap. The way you would see like a Lecrae if he got on 106 and Park, or if he got on like the BET Hip Hop Awards, it's like all the Christian kids would be like, we won something because the world has acknowledged our presence, as if our society and culture isn't shaped by Christianity.
Yes. They did that with Kendrick when Kendrick name dropped Lecrae in that song last year.
I wonder what Lecrae would do.
Yeah, I wonder what Lecrae would do.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like everyone's like, oh, he's going to get Kendrick. You know what I mean? It's like, y'all, Kendrick's been a Christian since day one.
Lecrae and Kendrick go back. I remember when Kendrick first came out and Lecrae was talking about how they had a relationship. So it's not like this is something that's
they've been
new.
Yeah, they've been hooking up for a long time. Well, not hooking up. I don't know.
Did
I just break some news?
Pause.
Yeah. Okay. So
can you pause?
No. Yeah, bro, you're not supposed to be saying that no more.
It's deep, man. We got to exercise that demon out of me.
Get that homophobia out your body.
We got to get it out, man. Like Kevin on stage was saying in his conversation with Van Lathan on Higher Learning.
Are we going to talk about that?
We can talk about it.
Okay, well, let's go back to the Wes Huff, because you had something.
There's a quote that he had after I think the podcast appearance that he posted on Twitter. I don't follow him, but you know how Twitter is now. You don't have to follow somebody to see what they say. So he posted this yesterday. So this is after his interview went viral. So he's talking about liberal Christianity. He says the term theological liberalism is thrown around a lot. When push comes to shove, though, it boils down to Richard Niebuhr's summation of what theological liberalism truly is. Quote, a God without wrath brought men without sin into a kingdom without judgment through the ministrations of a Christ without a cross. And
Man, get the fuck out of here, dude. You sound like a bitch, Wes Huff.
His summary of that quote is basically that liberal/progressive Christianity is more than that, but is no less than that. And he says basically these words ring true just as much as they did 89 years ago.
Okay, yeah, he's definitely right. Terms like theological liberalism get thrown around a lot, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because he's conflating a whole bunch of stuff here. Liberal/progressive Christianity. Those are not the same thing. You can't say liberal/progressive Christianity. Liberal theology is about an orientation towards, metaphysics, right? Like you look back at like the work of like Rudolf Bultmann, like that whole era of like the Jesus Seminar scholars, and what they're basically doing is Christian theology, but demythologizing it. Like they don't necessarily believe Jesus rose from the dead.
Sure.
Being a progressive Christian might not entail that at all. You might believe he rose from the grave on the third day, did all the miracles and all that. In fact, I would say most progressive Christians probably do believe all that, but they're politically progressive,
Yes.
right? And so it's kind of silly.
Yeah, it's frustrating to me because I remember being in circles where this was a normal way of viewing liberal Christianity. Yeah. To me, it's almost as if you're trying to explain something away so you don't have to actually engage with the arguments. So he's using terms like a Christ without a kingdom without judgment. What does judgment mean? What does the kingdom mean? Like these are questions that if you're asking the next question, you would interrogate a little bit more.
That's a good point, Josh. So what does that mean? What is judgment? Well, they assume judgment must be a negative thing, but you ever heard a judge say innocent?
Right.
You know what I mean? You never heard somebody get off in court? Right. And that's the whole point, right? It's like, I remember in class, Dr. Chris Green in our, was it systematic theology or something? He was asking us, what is the difference between justice and mercy? And people giving all these different things. The point he was trying to make is if you think Christianly, God's justice is God's mercy. He's not split on things, right? Like, so the judgment of God is like the declaration of your innocence because he paid for your sins.
Yes.
So no, in fact, I would say what conservative Christianity is a God with one-sided judgment. You know what I mean? Where one-sided judgment for almost everybody. You know?
Yeah, it's frustrating. So if we walk through some of these terms, so a Christ without a cross. The interesting thing about that is that the cross to them means one specific thing. It means penal substitutionary atonement.
That's right.
Which is a very specific way of viewing what Jesus did.
Yes.
There's other ways of viewing that still have a very, and we've talked about it in past episodes.
Yeah.
Still revere the cross, still think it has extreme importance and centrality even, but we just don't see it in that way. So a liberal Christian can still believe in what these terms in the significance of these terms, but may have slightly different definitions.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Or mega different.
Or extremely different, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing that a lot of times people like Wes Huff and the apologists do is they conflate terms with the meaning behind them, and then they confuse they don't even confuse, they just mask for the people that are evangelicals to just say, hey, you can dismiss liberal theology because they don't care about the cross. They don't care about the kingdom. They don't care about judgment. So you don't have to listen to what they say. They're dangerous. They're outside of the faith. And so when you have that sort of that framework, like I did at the time, it keeps you locked in from even engaging with some of these people if you can label them as these are outsiders that don't believe like we do.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You just made me think of so many things. I want to come back to, for anybody that's watching, that's like, what is penal substitutionary atonement? That sounds like a sex thing. But before we go there, I also think he would probably loop in leftists there too, like liberal Christianity, progressive Christianity, leftist Christianity. That's another thing. Like you could be a progressive Christian and not be a leftist. Like you could be a Christian who is like pro-gay marriage or whatever, but still be sold out to neoliberal capitalism. Yeah. You know what I mean? You could be a leftist Christian that's not progressive. You know what I mean? Like you could be economically leftist and not really have space for people of color or for queer people in your
categories are not the same.
No, and they just want to collapse everything into this really small thing. And we kind of stick our foot in our own mouth, right? Because we give them opportunities to do that. There's the term deconstruction.
Yes.
People get so mad at me, right? Because that's a big term. You referenced the Kev on Stage, going on to Van Lathan's podcast, Higher Learning. and what's his sister's name? I don't want to leave her out.
Rachel Lindsay.
Rachel Lindsay. And going on to their podcast, and he's talking about Christian Smith, who is, I won't say a friend. We're not like close, but we're acquaintances, and we interact positively with each other. And I love everything he says and does. But he uses the term deconstruction. But what's his name? Kev on stage, the comedian, referred to him as a theologian and deconstructionist. What the hell is a deconstructionist? I think that this term deconstruction, help me understand, Josh, how it's valuable. Like, help me understand, because what they're saying, what people are saying when they say doing deconstruction is just doing theology. It's just doing better theology. Yeah. But when you give it this like really directionally focused thing, I'm deconstructing something, then you make it feel like it's about a specific thing going in one direction. Yes. And at least that's how it sounds to the detractors. Yeah. I know No Nonsense Spirituality, Britt Hartley got onto me for that, because she was like, how can, and I love her, everything she does. Yeah. But she was like, how can you say that like deconstruction is just tearing things down? And I'm like, maybe I'm the dumb one here. I know it's definitely not her, but like, I don't understand how it means anything other. That sounds like the definition of the word. To deconstruct something is just to take something apart. Yes. When in reality, there's nothing anybody doing deconstruction is saying that hadn't already been said by people just doing theology. Right. Right. And so I think you just give people like this, you give right-wing evangelicals another term to dismiss you by. Yeah. Like you said, if they can attach like these ideas to you, they just don't believe in judgment, or they just don't believe in this, then you can turn a whole swath of people who might be open to a message you have away before they even get to hear you, because they're going, they're just doing deconstruction. That's just evangelical deconstruction shit. Yeah, it's this whole conversation, and the more I reflect on my time in these spaces, makes me continue to consider a lot of these spaces cults. Because what does a cult do? It gives you thought-terminating cliches like deconstruction, liberal, these things that stop you from engaging in this line of thinking that may lead you outside of the group. So when I was in Christianity and deconstructing, right, what was I doing? I was reading different perspectives that were outside of my own. I wasn't reading a deconstructionist. I'm just reading a theologian that was outside of the tradition that I had grown up on. Exactly. I'm reading liberation theology in a way that I hadn't before. I'm learning about different views of the atonement. I'm learning about different views of hell. This is called deconstruction. This is just learning. Like you said, I think one of the first conversations we had, you're like, I don't like deconstruction, because really all we did was just learn some shit that we didn't know before. Yeah. Like, what is deconstruction? Learning new shit and changing your mind about the old shit. Like, it's funny because people will throw that term at me, like, you're just a liberal deconstruction. I'm like, first of all, don't ever call me a liberal. The slander. Don't ever slanderize me and call me a liberal. But, so, sorry, I'm going to get into trouble. I forget, because there's people out there that don't know what I mean by that, and that might click away. Just go back and watch episodes 1, 2, and 3. We went very hard on the liberal versus leftist distinction. We did. Yeah. So, they want to throw that at me, and I'm like, dude, I based my argument in Aquinas. Dude, I based my argument in David Bentley Hart, an Eastern Orthodox theologian. Dude, I based my argument in Karl Rahner. Like, I'll do a video about how Christians should be able to believe that even non-Christians can be saved. That's a new deconstruction thing. No, that's like Karl Rahner, one of the most revered Catholic theologians of the 20th century, with his idea of the anonymous Christian. It's like, this stuff is out there. You don't have to think you're doing something new. You still be connected. I'm an atheist, and I still think of myself as somebody connected to the Christian tradition, because this is the community that bore me, the language that I speak, and so on. So, I don't know. I think we just we do that. But tell them a little bit about what penal substitutionary atonement is. I think you would do a better job of explaining it than me, honestly. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like a strap-on. No, I'm just playing. Maybe I shouldn't let you explain it. Bro, okay, it's real quick. That's just this idea that is like the dominant view of salvation in Christianity. Like, if you think you could articulate, even if you're not a Christian, what Christians believe about salvation or the gospel message, that's like the default American understanding. And it's this simple idea that humans fell into sin. We fell, and now we're dead in our sins. And the only way we could be saved is for God to send his son down and murder him, so that his wrath that he has on us, God is so angry with us. He has so much wrath against us because he despises sin, and we are bathed in sin. And so he kills his son, as the sacrifice in our place. Jesus takes on the wrath of God for us. But the crazy thing is that that's a relatively new invention in the world of theology. That's not something that ever existed. There are many other models of what we would call like models of redemption or models of salvation in Christian theology that are way older than that predate that are way more beautiful than that are make way more sense.
Yeah.
It's crazy though to think, isn't that a monster God?
That's what I think it is. But you have people that brand themselves in the early 2010s, like Mark Driscoll. They would describe what you just said as the gospel trademark.
Yeah.
And then they would create organizations like the Gospel Coalition.
Yes.
It's not the Gospel Coalition in my mind. It's the white American Evangelical Calvinist Coalition.
No, come on. They got like one or two black people they throw in there.
Are they black? Are they really black though? I could think of one, the Bidi Anyabwile. I remember him, and they cast him out because he started talking about racial politics. They say, "Oh no, we can't have you in this."
I know, dude. That's where I pulled that quote. That W.E. Du Bois quote was actually from him, from the Gospel Coalition website.
Oh snap!
Yeah.
No, they don't rock. A lot of those dudes don't rock with them anymore because of his engagement with racial politics and refusing to be a Republican. So.
I did just actually, it's funny you bring this up. I did just see something, and I think it was the Gospel Coalition where they like put a new board in place, and it's like all white. It's like 11 white dudes.
It's so funny, man. We go through cycles, and I feel like the organization that I used to work for, Crew, I'm going to say their name. I don't care anymore. We went through a similar phase. I feel like in the past like 5 years.
That used to be Campus Crusade for Christ.
Campus Crusade for Christ. Work with Impact Movement as well. Maybe we'll have the former president on here at some point.
Oh, snap.
Talk about it. But there was like this move for racial reconciliation that happened like 10 years ago within the church. It's not a new thing necessarily, but it became in vogue.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of these conversations that happened around how can we come together and be multi-ethnic, diverse, champion voices from other walks.
COVID and Black Lives Matter killed that shit.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. And 2020 happened. People said, oh, Trump. Well, first Trump happened. Then Black Lives Matter happened.
Yeah.
And then the divide happened again. And so now you see these spaces that we're trying to maybe accommodate some more diverse voices. They doubled down on.
They went hard right.
White evangelicalism. Yeah. And we are not allowing nobody that thinks anything that's not Republican, Calvinist. If you even say anything that smells woke, you out.
Yeah.
They calling John Piper woke these days.
Yeah, John Piper is woke these days. Bro, they had me John Piper maxing out here. Like it was 2010. Talk about Lecrae and the, the Christian hip hop to John Piper pipeline.
Yeah.